Hey guys, you're back with Universes Beyond. Just myself today, doing a deck tech on Eulalek, Fuse Atrocity, one of the most exciting commanders I've ever seen, to be totally honest, because this is an Eldrazi commander from the new Modern Horizons set, Modern Horizons 3, which is due to be released in June. It has all of the colors in its color identity, as well as being devoid, which means that it is colorless. It is a crazy Eldrazi commander, which I think is going to dominate CEDH. We're going to get into this in a moment. Before we do so, myself and my partner in crime here, Sam Wise Buzzspell, is not with me today, but he is working away at the mock-ups and all of the other things that we're going to be bringing to the channel in the near future. Please subscribe. It really helps us get to that new milestone. We're trying to get to 250 subs. So if you could please help us by subscribing, that encourages us every day to do more. So without further ado, let's get into this commander. Eulalek is devoid, like I said. It's a legendary creature, 2/5, so it's got a big body after just having a 5 mana cost to cast it. So straight off the bat, you've got a good kind of blocker here in itself. This ability below is just crazy, and this is what kind of gets me excited here, is that it's kind of a mashup of two of the Eldrazi's in the past, but essentially, well, let me know the names of those Eldrazi below, because I can picture them, but I can't remember the exact full names of them, but put that in the comment section below. Whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, you may pay 2 colorless. Not going to be a problem. We're going to be whacking loads of mana ramp in here, so yeah, bear with us. If you do, copy all spells you control, and then copy all other activated and triggered abilities you control, and you may choose new targets for the copies. Mana abilities cannot be copied. So interesting, that last bit. So if something has a mana ability, if it's a mana rock, for example, if it's a soul ring, you wouldn't be able to copy that ability. You wouldn't be able to copy lands either, so please just bear that in mind. However, we will be getting as many mana rocks in here as possible, so that we make sure that when we are casting an Eldrazi spell, we can, and we do have access to 2 colorless mana, so that we can trigger that multiple times per turn. Because, like I say, you want to be casting Eldrazi spells. And one thing to note is that copying spells doesn't class as casting them, of course. So you will need to cast an Eldrazi spell and have 2 spare mana on top of that Eldrazi spell's mana cost to be able to pay the additional 2 to copy all spells you control. Absolutely crazy. I mean, we have lots of kind of enter the battlefield kind of triggers on the creatures that we've included here. We've got lots of leave the battlefield triggers as well, so that obviously with those, you'll be able to trigger those off multiple times if you've copied that spell. And, you know, there's lots of other activated abilities. So one thing that I would say is that this is the face commander of the new Eldrazi Commander Deck, which is coming out. And so if you're picking that up, this deck tech is all about cards that have been released in Magic's history that would be able to be purchased right now and can upgrade that precon, or you can build around this commander deck so that you have a just insanely powerful deck. So without further ado, let's get into the includes. So pickups here, most of them are under $4. Actually, the majority are under $1. However, there are 5 cards here which make up the most expensive cards that are over $4 each, and that's the 5 that are on screen now. But like I say, the majority are under $4, so most of these are budget pickups, I would say. So yeah, let's get started. I've put all of the mana ramps in together, so let's go through here. Ancient Tomb, the most expensive one that you can pick up, but in all seriousness, I mean, I'm not going to advocate proxying, but if you need to trial a card, then Ancient Tomb is a banger in this deck. So it allows you to tap it, add 2 colorless mana. It does deal 2 damage to you. However, with copying abilities and all of that malarkey, we'll be able to get some life back. And 2 damage doesn't mean anything in Commander if you're able to get some life back. And so this is an automatic include. And then you've got Blighted Woodland. It's a land. You tap it to add 1 of your to your mana pool. But it's also got an activated ability here, which is nuts, because you're going to need to put some basic lands in here to have access to all of those 5 color identity. And essentially here you've got 3 colorless and a green to sack this and search your library for 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. So if you want, we've got some Eldrazi in here which have some colored activated abilities. If you need some specific color, this is a great card to be able to allow you to go and fetch that. You would have to have a forest down already, of course, but not a difficult one to go about doing. And then the next is Burnished Heart. So this is 3 colorless and to cast, and it's an artifact creature, Elk. It's not an Eldrazi, of course, but the ability below is enough to run this in the deck because it will allow you to get those basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield. It's a 2/2, and it has a 3 and a sacrifice Burnished Heart activated ability. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. One thing to note is that this wouldn't directly be classed as a mana ability, and so you would be able to copy this when you're enabling your commander's activated ability. So if this is already on the battlefield and you're playing you're casting an Eldrazi spell and you pay the additional 2, this can be one of the ones that you copy. And so you'd be able to, copy it, sacrifice it, copy it, sacrifice it, copy it, sacrifice it. So you'd be able to continually ramp for that 3 cost. So it's a great include in this deck. Highly recommend picking it up. Dreamstone Hedron, it's 6 to cost. Some would look at that and think it's fairly expensive, but you're getting 3 back, from the tapped ability, which allows you to activate, tap it for 3 mana. And I mean, we're going to be running so many mana ramps in here that you'll be able to, get this down fairly early. And also here, it has a sacrifice activate ability, which is 3 to cost to activate it, and you tap it and sacrifice it, and you draw 3 cards. I mean, at certain points, you may just need to pay that 3 and draw the 3 cards. If you run out of Eldrazi spells in your hand to play, for example, then this allows you to get that card advantage and get some more Eldrazi spells to play. So the next one is Everflowing Chalice. This is an insanely powerful card in this deck. The reason being is you're going to have access to lots of mana, and this kind of scales. If you leave this for a couple of turns, you've got it in your hand. You leave it a couple of turns, and you get to a point where you've got 12 mana, for example, which you can pay into this because it's a multi-kicker which relies on colorless. It's not getting kicked by colored mana. You can basically pour as much into this as you want. So you could pour 12 into it, for example, and then every time you tap this, you're getting 6 mana. So it's a pretty crazy deck, goes into lots of Eldrazi decks, and there's no reason why it wouldn't go into this deck as well. It would go nuts. I mean, it would go nuts. So anyways, on to the next. It's Expedition Map. It's 1 colorless artifact, and it has a sacrifice ability, activated ability. So you pay 2, you tap it, sacrifice it, search your library for a land card. So one thing here is it doesn't denote a basic land card. So you can go and find any of the big name land cards that I dropped above, or any other land cards that you put in for that reason. And you put it into your hand, and then you shuffle the library. So it doesn't go onto the battlefield, but you find a land that you want, and then boom, you play it the next turn. Or if you haven't played a land this turn, you can just play your land this turn. It's a really, really great include, and no doubt will go into many of these decks. Hedron Archive. So 4 colorless artifact, add 2 to your mana pool, and pay 2, sacrifice it, and you can draw 2 cards. So again, access to colorless mana, and it does big things. I mean, it allows you to get card draw, late game if you need to activate that. Then you're getting your card draw back. Pretty good card. I love it. I mean, goes pretty far. Mindstone, I mean, automatic include, 2 colorless. You get 1 color, colorless back to your mana pool. And you can pay 1 to sacrifice it and draw a card. Very similar to the one before, but just a cheaper cost and does a little bit less. But yeah, automatic include. Solemn Simulacrum. I mean, this is a banger. Goes in a lot of these decks, and it's very similar to the Elk that I mentioned earlier. It's 4 colorless and artifact creature, Golem. You know, got to have a Golem. Smeagol makes his way into the darkest of, you know, chasms. So don't know what the hell I'm going on about, to be honest. All right, so artifact creature 2/2. When Solemn Simulacrum enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card and then put that onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle your library. And when it dies, you may draw a card. So because you're going to be copying spells, you're going to be copying sacrifice. Triggered abilities, you know, all of these different things. This is an automatic include because it's a way that you can just keep searching your library for basic land cards, and yeah, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then when these die, if they die, you know, you're drawing cards off the back of it. So it's a pretty mental card. Highly recommend including this one. And then yeah, on to the next. So the next card here is Thran Dynamo. It's 4 colorless, and it's an artifact, and it allows you to tap it and add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. I mean, yeah, doesn't really get much better than that. 4 colorless for a 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Absolutely nuts. I mean, yeah, highly recommend picking this one up. And then we get into some of the creatures. So we've got Eugen, the Spirit Dragon here. It's 8 colorless to cast, legendary Planeswalker. I mean, this one speaks for itself. It's an amazing card. Eugen has a +2. Eugen deals 3 damage to any target. Pretty standard. And then it has a -X. Exile each permanent with converted mana cost X or less that's 1 or more colors. We're going to have a lot of colorless in here, and you know, with the commander being devoid, it basically means that you're going to be able to have access to a one-sided board wipe here. I mean, it goes pretty nuts, and that -X is a great ability. You can essentially -7 it as straight away off almost, and then yeah, one-sided board wipe, pretty amazing. And then you've got -10, so you gain, if you get to -10, you gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, then put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. I mean, this doesn't class as casting them, but still, you know, with Eldrazi's, you know, getting some big guys onto the battlefield is never going to be a bad thing. And you're gaining 7 life and drawing 7 cards in the process. And as I mentioned before, with the Ancient Tomb, if you're losing 2 life, doesn't matter, you're going to be able to just gain it back. So yeah, cracking card, and is a cracked card. So here we go, on to the next. Oh, I've got 3 more mana ramps for you. Of course, the Urza trio. So we've got Urza's Mine. Tap it, add 1 to your mana pool. If you control the other 2 as well, then you add 2 to your mana pool instead. It's the same with Urza's Power Plant and Urza's Tower. Should go in any colorless deck, or the majority is colorless, and just does bits. If you have the trio out, this one here, specifically, Urza's Tower, adds 3 to your mana pool. So you are laughing, my good friends. Very much laughing. And it's not a basic land, so earlier when you could search for any land, yeah, highly recommend grabbing one of these or grabbing the Ancient Tomb. So here we go. We get onto the creatures, the meat on the bone, as they would say. Ulamog's Crusher, 8 colorless to cast it. It's an Eldrazi, so, you know, any of these you'd be able to cast it, pay the additional 2, and then copy everything apart from the mana abilities on your board state. So this one is definitely a beast. It's an 8/8 as it comes in as well, so it's got a big body against it. Annihilator 2. So if you're unfamiliar with Annihilator 2, whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents. I mean, Annihilator is pretty broken. I mean, this is what I'm saying. CEDH is probably the place you want to be playing this, because if you just turn up to a table and you've got all of these running in your deck, you're probably gonna, you know, pee some people off. So anyways, Annihilator 2, and then it's got Ulamog's Crusher deals. Well, it attacks each turn if it's able. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, you're going to be swinging out with an 8/8. It does force you to attack, but, you know, it's going to be an 8/8. So, yeah, plenty that you can do here. If you give it something like a Chroma's Memorial, you know, where it gets flying, protection from certain colors, you know, all of those additional things, then yeah, it's pretty sure it's going to get through. Then on to the next. Imracral, the Promised End, is 13 mana cost, so it's very expensive. However, what it does is absolutely nuts. It is a 13/13 as it comes into play. Legendary creature, Eldrazi. So this costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. So you're getting a reduced cost if you've got things in your graveyard, if you've got some lands, or if you've got some artifacts, you've got some instants, etc., etc., etc. Then there's lots that you can get decreased on here. However, that 13, even by itself, it's not too difficult to get to when you've got that much mana in your, accessible in your deck. So this is going to go pretty crazy. When you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent. Of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, the player takes an extra turn. So you're not gaining control of the opponent's permanence. You're gaining control of the opponent. You're taking a turn for that player. So yeah, if you think about this, you're basically going to have access to all of that player's mana. You're having access to all of their creatures, all of their activated abilities. It's all pretty nuts. So yeah, and if this is on the board, you're going to be able to pay that additional 2 and then copy everything else from around the board state. So yeah, pretty crazy. And then it says fly. It also has flying, trample. So if the other abilities weren't enough, flying and trample on this, and protection from instants. Yeah, when Emrakul, comes down and is on the board state, the next Eldrazi you play, you can pay an additional 2 and copy Emrakul. So yeah, just bear that one in mind. For your commander, you're only paying 5 for your commander, so you can get your commander in fairly early days. If you can give your commander hexproof and protect it, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you deal with this deck. Honestly, I think it's game ending. I think it's crazy. Yeah. Anyways, right, on to the next. Void Attendant 2 with a green. So this is what I was saying. The best thing about your commander is it has access to all of the different colors. So it's a Eldrazi Processor as the creature. It's a 2/3, and it's devoid, so it has no color. So again, if you need to do that one-sided board wipe from the earlier Planeswalker mentioned, you can do that because it has no color. And it is 1 colorless and a green activated ability. Put a card an opponent owns from exile onto that player's graveyard. Put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi creature token onto the battlefield. It has sacrificed this creature. Add 1 to your mana pool. So basically, if your opponent has lots in their exile, you'll be able to basically put it into their graveyard by activating this ability, and you can do this multiple times. And that Eldrazi creature token, I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it Skyon? Eldrazi Skyon creature token. Yeah, it essentially acts as mana ramp. So you're laughing with this one if you get this in, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, this is an activated ability, so you can actually copy, every time you're playing a new Eldrazi, you can pay 2 and then copy this one, so you can have that activated ability multiple times. I mean, it's pretty crazy. On to the next, Ulamog, the Infinite Gaia. It's 11 to cost. It's a 10/10 body, so it's a big guy. Another Eldrazi, of course. We're going Eldrazi Tribal. When you cast this, destroy target permanent. I mean, yeah, let's just gloss over that one because that's incredible. I mean, obviously you're paying 11 for this. It's pretty nuts. It has Annihilator 4. So whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 4 permanents. I mean, it's not even when it comes into play. It's every single time it attacks. So yeah, I mean, 4 permanents. 4 permanents. Nuts. And if you copy this, you're gonna have 1, 2, 3 of these. If they swing out, you're swinging. If you swing to different opponents, right? If you've got 3 opponents, you're swinging out with 3 of these. Each of those 3 opponents are sacrificing 4 permanents, and it has indestructible, so no problem. I'll swing, no worries. And then when Ulalog is put into a battlefield from anywhere, its owner shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library. So yeah, it does a lot. Crazy stuff. Artisan of Kozilek, 9 colorless. It's an Eldrazi creature again. When you cast this, you may return target creature card from your battlefield, from your graveyard to the battlefield. You know, just to say, these two connect fairly nicely together. I mean, yeah, if this goes into the graveyard, you know, you're shuffling your graveyard into the library. Yeah, I mean, well, actually, that doesn't work nicely together. I don't know what I'm quite talking about. This one will get your graveyard into your library. Ignore that. However, this one is still crazy. I mean, you're just getting one of your big Eldrazi creatures back to the battlefield. And so, yeah, pretty good. Annihilator 2. So again, you're copying this one. You're being able to swing out, and every 2 permanents from your opponent that's getting attacked is going to have to sacrifice 2. They're going to have to sacrifice 2 permanents. So yeah, pretty good removal and pretty big guy with it being a 10-9. All right, guys, we're almost getting through it. I promise I won't keep rambling on. We're almost there. I think, how many cards have I got left? I've got a few more cards. I just don't want to bore you to death. All right, cool. Right, we've got Bearer of Silence. This is a 1 in a black. Yeah, just to say, having access to black is pretty banging in this deck as well, because you've got lots of reanimation spells in black. So bear that one in mind. Bearer of Silence, 1 in a black. It's a 2/1. It's an Eldrazi creature. So this is perfect, because if you're playing this, paying 2 additional is not an issue. And it's devoid, so it has no color. Again, when you cast Bearer of Silence, you may pay 1 and a colorless. If you do, target opponent sacrifices a creature. Yeah, pretty nuts. So you could just target any creature, target any opponent, and they will sacrifice a creature. Yeah, it has flying. Bearer of Silence can't block. So yeah, you can't block with this guy. But it has flying, so you're going to be able to get some damage through. Pretty crazy. And yeah, I mean, on to the next. Thought Not Seer. It's 3 and a colorless, so 4 in total. Again, it's an Eldrazi, so this one's a low cost in comparable to the other big guys that we've got. It's a 4/4, and it says when Thought Not Seer enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You may choose a non-land card from it and exile that card. Nuts. If someone's just been planning a multiple turn kind of like build up to try and remove your board state or to try and do something, then you can just basically look at their hand and be like, actually, yeah, I want to get rid of this one. So this one is yeah, it's gone. It's in exile. It's not in your graveyard. It's exiled. Yeah, pretty crazy. And just one thing to note, this is an enter the battlefield, so it's not a casting trigger. So if you copy this, you're going to be able to do this again and again and again and again. Crazy. When Thought Not Seer leaves the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. So you've got that as well. The next one here is Reality Smasher. It's 4 colorless and, well, 5 colorless in total, I guess. It is an Eldrazi creature. It's a 5/5. It has trample and haste. So yes, you're laughing on this one. Trample and haste is pretty banging. And whenever Reality Smasher becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, counter that spell unless its controller discards a card. Whew. I mean, yeah. I mean, these Eldrazi cards, they don't mess about. They're pretty bloody crazy. And then we're on to the second to last one here. Third to last one, actually. Endless 1. It's an X. It's a creature Eldrazi. Endless 1 enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So whatever you want to pay into this, right? You're getting into it. So I mean, this could be a 10/10 if you want it to be a 10/10. It could be a 20/20 if you have that much mana sat around. So yeah, it can go pretty nuts. And then on to the next. Desolation Twin. It's a 10 colorless Eldrazi creature. 10/10. When you cast Desolation Twin, put a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token onto the battlefield. This doesn't cast, that doesn't count as casting it because it's a token again. But nonetheless, you're getting 2 10/10s for 10. Yeah, pretty crazy. And then we move on to the next. Void, Winnower. So this is the last card here, guys. So yeah, very excited about this one. And this is 9 colorless, Eldrazi creature. Your opponents can't cast spells with even coveted mana cost. Damn, 0 is even. So there's 3 spells, they're out the window. Your opponents can't block with creatures with even converted mana costs. Yeah, so you're just giving away here of you're getting away basically of protecting your spells. You're also getting away here of swinging and actually hitting your opponents with some damage. So yeah, evasiveness is the topic of choice here. So yeah, it's an 11-9, an 11-9. So yeah, just take that one in for a moment. Okay, so back to the commander quickly. So just to wrap this one up, please subscribe. We are Universes Beyond. We got lots coming, and we're very happy when we see the numbers rolling in. It encourages us to do more. And I just want to say, we haven't included any sorceries, any instants, any enchantments here about, you know, buffing up these creatures, giving them more evasiveness, or, you know, or doing things which is basically one-sided board wipes. You know, anything that has a color, you know, there's lots of different removal spells that have that in it. So yeah, let us know what you want to see. Let us know what you think about today's deck tech, and like anyways, you know, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.